Adérónkẹ returned to the women's quarters without escort. That alone caused murmurs. She walked past clusters of maidens who pretended not to watch her, their laughter stopping a little too quickly, their eyes following her a little too closely. She sat on her mat, said nothing. That silence spoke louder than any announcement. "Why is she back so soon?" one girl whispered. "And why does she look untouched?" another asked. A bolder maiden stepped forward, Damilola, daughter of a wealthy chief, known for her sharp tongue and sharper ambition. "Well?" Damilola asked with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Did Kabiyesi fall asleep?" Soft laughter followed. Adérónkẹ looked up slowly. "He asked me to sit," she said simply. The room froze. Someone laughed nervously. "That's not possible," another said quickly. "No maiden sits before the king." Adérónkẹ shrugged. "He asked." Silence crashed into the room. Eyes widened. Hands tightened around beads. Damilola's smile thinned. "Lies," she said lightly. "Girls like you invent stories to feel important." But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her voice. Because the palace attendants had been watching, and they had been whispering. That evening, Iyalode Arike entered the quarters unexpectedly. All the maidens rose at once. Her eyes scanned the room and rested on Adérónkẹ. "Come," she said. Only one word, only one name. Adérónkẹ stood and followed her out. The door closed behind them. The room erupted. "She's favored," someone hissed. "Why her?" another snapped. "Do you know what this means?" Damilola said slowly, her voice low. "She's no longer just competition. She is danger." Faces hardened. A circle formed. Plans began to take shape. Soft words masking sharp intent. "We expose her," one girl suggested. "We provoke her," said another. "We make the king see her as a mistake," Damilola concluded. Outside, Adérónkẹ returned with new garments, folded neatly in her arms. Not expensive, not flashy, intentional. As she passed them, their smiles returned. Too sweet, too sudden. Damilola stepped forward and touched her arms gently. "Sister," she said warmly, "we should be friends." Adérónkẹ met her gaze, and for the first time since arriving at the palace, she felt it clearly. The shift. This was no longer a contest for beauty. It was a contest for survival. That night, as Adérónkẹ lay awake, she sensed movement near her mat. A shadow paused. A hand reached out, and somewhere in the darkness, a soft voice whispered, "Let's see how long favor protects you." The alliance did not begin loudly. It began with laughter, soft laughter, the kind that sounds harmless until you listen closely. Late that night, after the palace lamps were dimmed and the attendants withdrew, Damilola rose quickly from her mat. She moved like someone who had practiced walking without sound. She did not look back. She already knew who would follow. One by one, shadows slipped from their places. Girls whose smile had been sharpest during the day, whose laughter always came a heartbeat too late. They gathered in the small bathing chamber behind the women's quarters, the one rarely used because the water pipes there rattled loudly. Damilola closed the door and turned the wooden latch. "Now," she said softly, "we can speak truth." No one sat, no one leaned. They stood in a tight circle, faces half lit by a single oil lamp. "She has the king's ear," one girl said. She sat, another added bitterly. "She returned too quickly," a third whispered. "That means she pleased him." Damilola raised her hand. "She did not just please him," she said calmly. "She unsettled him." The word hung heavy. Unsettled? "That is worse," Damilola continued. "A king can discard beauty. He cannot easily discard doubt." Silence followed. Then a girl at the edge spoke. Titilola, quiet, observant, often overlooked. She hid herself. Titilola said, "Girls who hide usually have something dangerous beneath." Damilola smiled. Exactly. She stepped forward and lowered her voice. "If she becomes queen, none of us will matter. Not today, not tomorrow." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. "So what do we do?" someone asked. Damilola's eyes gleamed. "We do what women have always done when power ignores them," she said. "We become useful." She outlined the plan slowly. No shouting, no rushed cruelty, whispers, small accidents, carefully planted doubts. "We will not attack her all at once," Damilola said. "We will make her question herself." "And if she breaks?" someone asked. Damilola shrugged. "Then the king will see weakness." "And if she doesn't?" Damilola's smile returned. "Then we escalate." Titilola stepped forward. "How do we trust each other?" she asked. Damilola removed a thin bracelet from her wrist and dropped it into the center of the circle. "One secret," she said. "One secret from each of you." One by one, they spoke quietly. Confessions of envy, desperation, hunger for escape, fear of returning home empty-handed. When it was done, the room felt smaller. Damilola nodded. "Now we are bound." They placed their hands together briefly, not in prayer, in promise. Outside the chamber, unseen by them, a palace attendant paused mid-step. She frowned because she had heard her name mentioned. And it was Adérónkẹ. The latch clicked open. The maidens scattered back to their mats, faces calm, hearts racing. But the damage was done. The alliance had formed, and somewhere in the palace, Adérónkẹ turned in her sleep, a strange heaviness pressing on her chest, as if the night itself had begun choosing sides. The attack did not arrive as an insult. It arrived as help. At dawn, the women's quarters stirred with the sound of attendants calling names and the soft clatter of water bowls. The air carried the scent of herbs and warm oil. Adérónkẹ rose quietly, as she always did. She had barely stepped outside when Titilola approached her, smiling warmly. "Sister," she said, "you barely sleep. You must be tired." Adérónkẹ nodded politely. Titilola held out a small calabash. "A soothing rinse," she explained. "It calms the skin and clears the eyes." The elders favor maidens who look rested. Adérónkẹ hesitated. She had learned caution in the palace, but refusing kindness could also mark her. "Thank you," she said gently. Titilola's smile widened, just a little too quickly. Later that morning, during grooming, Adérónkẹ used the rings. At first, nothing happened. Then the itching began, subtle, annoying. By midday, her eyes burned faintly. Her skin tingled uncomfortably. Not enough to cry out, just enough to distract. During posture training, she shifted slightly. The instructor frowned. "Focus," she snapped. Adérónkẹ straightened, swallowing discomfort. Across the room, Damilola watched carefully. That evening, palace attendants whispered, "She looks strained," one murmured. "Perhaps she's not as composed as we thought," another replied. The seed had been planted. That night, as Adérónkẹ tried to sleep, the itching worsened. She rose quietly and went to the washing area, splashing cool water on her face. As she returned, she noticed something strange. Her training beads were missing. The beads given to her personally by Iyalode Arike. Her chest tightened. Without them, she would appear careless in morning inspection. She searched quickly. Nothing. From the shadows, Damilola observed her expression calm. Looking for something, she asked sweetly. Adérónkẹ met her gaze. "Yes." Damilola tilted her head. "Oh dear," she said softly. "You must learn to keep your things safe in the palace." Her words carried no accusation, only implication. As Adérónkẹ returned to her mat, the itching burned. Her eyes ached, and for the first time since entering the palace, doubt crept in. Not about the king, not about the crown, but about how much longer she could endure this unseen war. And somewhere nearby, the calabash that had carried the rings sat empty, cleaned carefully, leaving no trace. Morning arrived louder than usual, not with drums, with visitors, delegations from nearby villages. Chiefs, traders, and titled women had come to Ilé-Ọba Adéyẹmí, the palace courtyard filled with colors, coral beads, embroidered agbada, shining brass bracelets. Servants hurried everywhere. Even the air felt important, because this was not just a normal day. The king would appear publicly, and for the first time, the selected maidens would serve before witnesses. Inside the women's quarters, excitement spread like fire. Girls rushed to mirrors. Today he will notice me. No, today the chiefs will notice me. Even if I don't become queen, a noble marriage can still come. Only Adérónkẹ stayed quiet. That was what worried Damilola, because a calm opponent is harder to defeat than a proud one. She watched Adérónkẹ dress. Simple, neat, unremarkable, dangerous. Damilola gathered her allies. Today, she said softly, we stop her. In the courtyard, long mats were laid. Bowls of kola nuts, palm wine cups, and ceremonial trays were arranged. The maiden's duty was simple: serve the honored guest when called. But in palaces, simple duties destroy careless people. Before the call to assemble, while the attendants stepped away, Titilola quietly switched the 7 trays. Adérónkẹ's tray was replaced. It looked normal, but one leg was slightly uneven, and beneath the carved bowl, a thin smear of oil. Not enough to be seen, but enough to betray her. Damilola smiled. When she falls, she whispered, she will fall before chiefs and elders, and also the king. The talking drum sounded. Kábíyèsí o! The courtyard stood. Ọba Adéyẹmí entered in full regalia, crown beads revealing his faces, leopard skin, sash across his shoulders. Chiefs bowed, the air tightened with reverence. One by one, the maidens were called to serve. Laughter and approval followed the confident ones. Then, Adérónkẹ, for a second, silence brushed the courtyard. She rose calmly and lifted the tray. From the women's side, Damilola watched intensely. Now, Adérónkẹ stepped forward. 3 steps, 4. The tray trembled slightly. The uneven leg shifted. Oil slid beneath the bowl. The cup tilted. A chief leaned forward. Gasp rose. Someone whispered, "Ah, she will fall." Even the king's head turned. This was the moment. A stumble, a spill, palm wine splashing a chief, a maiden disgraced, a girl labeled clumsy before the kingdom, the end of her chances. What happened instead? The tray slipped, but Adérónkẹ did not panic. She lowered her body instantly to one knee, as if kneeling in greeting. The tray balanced against her thigh. The cup steadied. Not a drop spilled. The movement looked intentional, respectful, graceful. The chiefs nodded in approval. Good training, proper upbringing. Murmurs of admiration spread. Damilola's smile disappeared. The king leaned forward slightly behind his bead veil because he understood something others did not. That was not luck. That was presence of mind under pressure. Adérónkẹ calmly adjusted the tray and served the chief perfectly. No embarrassment, no shame, only dignity. From the women's section, the maidens stared, confusion, then anger, then fear, because now a dangerous truth emerged. She was not just patient, she was steady, and steady people are very hard to destroy. Ọba Adéyẹmí spoke quietly to a nearby elder. That girl notices everything. The elder replied, or survives everything. Across the courtyard, Adérónkẹ returned to her place. She did not look at Damilola, but she knew. And for the first time, Damilola felt it clearly. This was no longer a rivalry. It was a battle she might lose. Victory should have brought Adérónkẹ peace. Instead, it brought attention. After the courtyard ceremony, servants spoke her names in kitchens. Guards mentioned her at gates. Even elders who rarely praised maidens nodded when she passed. And inside the palace, attention spreads faster than fire in dry grass. Ọba Adéyẹmí said nothing publicly, but twice that evening, he asked a simple question. That quiet girl, where is she from? No one missed it, least of all Damilola, because she finally understood the real danger. The king was no longer observing Adérónkẹ, he was thinking about her. And the king's thoughts shape kingdoms. That night, the alliance gathered again in the bathing chamber. No laughter this time, only urgency. We cannot embarrass her, one girl said. We cannot break her, said another. Damilola shook her head. Then we stop fighting her, she said calmly. They stared. What do you mean? Damilola's eyes widened. We fight perception. Silence filled the room. A king does not choose a queen only for beauty, she continued. He chooses safety, stability, trust. She leaned closer, so we will not make her look weak. A pause. We will make her look dangerous. The palace worked on routine. Guards rotated. Attendants cleaned. Elders visited the king in scheduled intervals. And every system has gaps. The next afternoon, a small incident occurred. A junior guard reported to his captain. Kabiesi's favorite hunting spears is missing. The captain frowned. The spear was ceremonial, never removed without permission. It was later found behind a wooden screen near the maiden's corner. No accusation was made, but a story began breathing. 2 days later, a palace attendant quietly told another, I heard someone walking late at night near the council palace. Who? A maiden? Which one? I think Adérónkẹ. The attendant did not know she was overheard. She did not know Damilola had arranged that she would be. Stories spread fastest when they sound accidental. During evening meal service, an elder found. My documents were moved. Important documents, land records. Only servants and selected palace members could reach that chamber. Again, no accusation, only suggestion. And suggestions are more powerful than lies because people complete them themselves. Oba Adéyẹmí sat with Baba Ifáṣẹ́yìn that night. The old advisor spoke slowly. A ruler must be careful of sudden favors, he said. The king looked at him. You speak in riddles. The old man tapped his staff lightly. Strangers carry sometimes unseen storms. The king said nothing, but his mind remembered something. Adérónkẹ's words, not all truths, are meant for all seasons. For the first time, doubt, small, quiet, unwelcome, entered his thoughts. The alliance made one final move. A message, a false one. A young palace boy was given instructions to deliver a folded leaf note to a guard captain, but he was intentionally redirected. The note was discovered before reaching its destination. Inside it was written, Tonight, when the moon rises, the king will stand alone. No signature, no explanation, but it was found near the maiden's quarters. The palace shifted instantly. Guards doubled, eyes sharpened, and the question quietly formed in the minds of the council. Why would a maiden be involved in secret movements? Oba Adéyẹmí did not confront her. He did something worse. He observed her. The next day, As Adérónkẹ walked through the courtyard, she felt it, the weight of unseen attention. Not the jealous maidens, not servants, the king. From behind a carved balcony screen, he watched. Her steps were steady, her face calm. No guilt, no fear that trembled him more. Because guilty people often pretend calm, but innocent people do not know they are being measured. He whispered quietly to himself, "Who are you really?" That night, Adérónkẹ knelt beside her mat, unable to sleep. Nothing had happened, yet everything had changed. Conversations stopped when she approached. Servants bowed more cautiously. Even the air around her felt suspicious. She did not know why, but she understood one thing. She was no longer fighting jealous maidens. She was now fighting doubt. And doubt, once it reaches a throne, is more dangerous than any enemy. Far away, Damilola smiled in the darkness because she knew the truth. She did not need to defeat Adérónkẹ. She only needed the king to wonder about her. And once a king begins to wonder, he soon begins to fear. The palace did not accuse Adérónkẹ. It did something worse. It watched her. Guards who once greeted her warmly now nodded cautiously. Attendants answered her politely, brought briefly. Conversations stopped when she approached, then resumed when she passed. No one spoke against her, but no one trusted her either. And in a royal palace, suspicion spread faster than truth. Adérónkẹ felt it everywhere. She did not know what had been said, but she knew something had been planted. That evening, as sunset painted the palace wall deep orange, Iyalode Arike sent for her, not publicly, quietly. Adérónkẹ followed her to a small courtyard garden behind the women's quarters, a place rarely used except by senior attendants. Birds chirped softly in the trees. The sound of the palace faded there. Iyalode Arike did not turn immediately. "You are being measured," she said. Adérónkẹ's chest tightened. "For what offense?" she asked. The older woman finally faced her. "That is the danger," she replied. "No offense has been proven, but suspicion has been invited." Adérónkẹ's hands trembled slightly. "By who?" Iyalode Arike studied her carefully. "If you do not know," she said slowly, "then you are in greater danger than I feared." The older woman stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Listen carefully. The council now believes you may have entered this palace with purpose beyond marriage." Adérónkẹ's breath stopped. Not because it was true, but because it was close to a truth she had hidden all her life. "I have done nothing," she whispered. Iyalode Arike nodded. "I believe you." A pause. "But belief does not protect you. Only explanation does." Adérónkẹ's eyes lowered. She could explain, but explaining meant revealing who she truly was and who her parents had been. A past she had promised never to expose. The past she carried. She had not always been simply the orphan niece of Baba Modupe. Her parents had once lived near the royal lands, and they had died suddenly after a dispute involving a traveling official years ago, an event quietly buried by those in power. Baba Modupe had warned her, do not let the palace know your lineage. Sometimes history is safer forgotten. So she entered the selection without revealing her origin. Not deception, but protection. Now that silence looked like secrecy, and secrecy near a throne looks like a threat. Iyalode Arike spoke gently. If the king asked you directly, you must answer him. Adérónkẹ shook her head. If I speak, I may bring trouble to the only family I have left. And if you do not, the older woman replied softly, the trouble will come to you instead. That same night, a palace messenger arrived. He bowed. Kabiyesi requests your presence tomorrow at first light. Adérónkẹ's heart pounded. Not a visit, not a ceremony, a private sermon, which meant one thing. The king had begun to doubt her. After the messenger left, Adérónkẹ sat alone beneath the moonlight. She finally understood. The attacks, the whispers, the rumors, they were not meant to embarrass her. They were meant to isolate her until the king himself questioned her. And once a king begins questioning loyalty, answers rarely matters. Perception does. In another part of the quarters, the alliance watched the messenger leave her door. Damilola smiled slowly. It is done, she said. Tomorrow she explains herself. And if she cannot, a girl asked. Damilola's voice was calm. Then she will remove herself. No poison, no confrontation, just royal suspicion. The safest weapon in a palace. Near dawn, Adérónkẹ knelt alone. For the first time since she entered Ilé-Ọba Adéyẹmí, fear truly reached her. Not fear from the maidens, not fear of humiliation, fear of the choice before her. Speak and endanger her past, or remain silent and lose her future. As the sun began to rise over the palace walls, she realized the truth. By sunset, she might no longer be a candidate for queen. She might no longer be welcome in the palace at all. The summon came before sunrise. The palace was still wrapped in blue morning mist when the guard knocked softly on the women's quarters door. Adérónkẹ, he called. No drums, no attendants, no ceremony. That alone told every maiden something was wrong. She stood slowly. The room watched her, some with curiosity, some with satisfaction, while some with quiet fear. Damilola did not smile. She simply observed, because this was the moment she had been waiting for. Adérónkẹ followed the guard through corridors she had never seen before. Not the decorated halls used for celebration. These were older, narrower, walls carved with fading symbols of past rulers. Oil lamps burned low, leaving shadows gathered in front of the corners. Even the air felt heavier there. The deeper they walked, the quieter the palace became. By the time they stopped, even the morning birds could no longer be heard. The guard opened the wooden door. The king waits. He did not enter with her. He closed it behind her. Oba Adéyẹmí was not wearing his full regalia. No crown veil, no court robes. Only a simple royal wrapper and coral beads. For the first time, he looked less like a ruler and more like a man. But his eyes were sharper than she had ever seen them. He did not ask her to come closer. He did not greet her. He simply watched her stand. The silence stretched. Then he spoke. You have brought unrest into my palace." The words struck harder than a shout. Adérónkẹ lowered her head respectfully. "I have done no such thing, Kábíyèsí." "That," he replied calmly, "is what I am trying to determine." He stepped down from the raised platform. Slowly, carefully. "A spear was found near your quarters." She said nothing. Messages have moved through corridors at night. Her hands tightened slightly. "Servant whispers your name." He stopped directly in front of her. "Why?" Her heart pounded. "I do not know." He watched her eyes closely. Not her words, her eyes. "You speak carefully," he said. "I speak truthfully," she replied. He tilted his head. Truth is rarely careful. He walked past her and turned his back. "Where are you from?" Her breath caught. The one question she feared. "My uncle's compound, Kábíyèsí." He shook his head slightly. "That is where you lived," he turned. "That is not where you come from." Silence filled the chamber. The king's voice softened, but became heavier. "You hide your origin." Adérónkẹ's pulse thundered in her ears. "I hide nothing dishonorable." "Then reveal it." She could not, because revealing it might reopen old matters buried long ago. Matters powerful people preferred forgotten. And she understood something clearly. The king was not asking only from suspicion. He was asking because he wanted to trust her. But kings cannot trust what they cannot see. The king moved closer. "If you seek the throne," he said quietly, "you cannot carry secrets into it." She lifted her eyes. "For some people, Kábíyèsí, silence is not deception. A pause. It is survival." For the first time, his expression shifted. Not anger, recognition, because he understood that sentence came from experience, not cleverness. He stepped away. "I will not accuse you," he said. Relief almost reached her. Then, "But the council may." Her relief vanished. "I can protect you only with the truth." He faced her again. "You have 3 days." Her heart dropped. 3 days to tell me everything you hide. "And if I cannot," she asked quietly. The king's voice was steady. "Then I must choose the safety of the kingdom over my interest in you." The door opened. The guard waited. She bowed deeply and left. But as she reached the doorway, the king spoke again. Not as a ruler, as a man uncertain of his own thoughts. "Adérónkẹ," she paused. "I hope you give me a reason not to doubt you." She left without answering. Outside the palace was awake, but nothing looked the same anymore. Every servant, every corridor, every greeting now carried weight. She now had 3 days. 3 days to reveal a past she was sworn never to reveal, or lose everything. From a balcony above, Damilola watched her return, and for the first time she frowned, because Adérónkẹ did not look defeated. She looked resolved, and Damilola suddenly realized something unsettling. The king had not rejected her. He had given her time, and time was dangerous. The 3rd day arrived faster than Adérónkẹ expected. She had not slept. Not truly. Every hour of the night had carried memories she had spent years burying. Her mother's warning voice, her father's hurried departure the night soldiers came, her uncle's trembling hands as he told her never to speak of it again. Now she had no choice. At sunset, a royal messenger came. "The king is ready." This time, she did not tremble. Ọba Adéyẹmí stood beside an open window, overlooking the forest beyond the palace walls. Evening light stretched long across the floor. He did not turn immediately. He asked for the meeting. Adérónkẹ, yes, Kábíyèsí, speak. Her throat tightened. For a moment, words refused to come. Then she knelt. My name is Adérónkẹ, daughter of Adéwọlé. The king turned sharply. He knew the name. Not clearly, but faintly, like a memory buried beneath time. My father served the royal trade routes years ago, she continued. He warned officials about stolen taxes along the river path. The king's eyes narrowed. He remembered. There had once been a report, dismissed and then suddenly silenced. They called him a liar, she said softly. Soon after, men came at night. Our compound burned. My parents died before morning. The chamber fell completely silent. My uncle hid me. He told me never to reveal my lineage, not because my father was guilty, but because the men he accused still held influence. She finally lifted her eyes. I did not enter the palace to deceive you, Kábíyèsí. A pause. I entered because life pushed me here. The king's face had changed. Not suspicion, understanding. You feared the palace would remember your father, he said slowly. I feared the palace would belong to the same people who silenced him. The rumors, the planted evidence, the false message. It was no longer random jealousy. Someone was protecting an old secret, and Adérónkẹ's presence had threatened it. The king spoke quietly. You were not hiding guilt. No, you were hiding survival. Yes. The king nodded slowly. Then he said something that stunned her. You have done what many men cannot do. Stand in danger without bitterness. He turned towards the door. Your silence ends tonight. As guards hurried from the chamber carrying royal orders, Adérónkẹ realized something had changed. The king was no longer testing her. He was protecting her. And somewhere else in the palace, men who believed their past crimes were buried forever were about to be remembered. The palace courtyard filled before noon. Chiefs gathered. Elders arrived. Guards lined the walls. Even the maidens were summoned. Whispers spread rapidly. No one knew why the king had called a full assembly. Damilola watched carefully. Something felt wrong. Too many soldiers, too many council members. Then the king entered, not in ceremony, in judgment. Ọba Adéyẹmí raised his staff. Years ago, he said, a loyal man won this palace of corruption along the trade routes. Murmurs moved through the crowd. He was silenced. His home destroyed. His family scattered. Faces shifted. Some elders stiffened. The king continued, that man's daughter stand in the palace today. Gasp spread. Adérónkẹ stepped forward. Recognition dawned slowly across the assembly. The king's voice hardened. My court has been manipulated by those who feared the truth would return. He signaled the guards. Several officials were seized immediately. Among them, a senior council member who had quietly encouraged suspicion against Adérónkẹ. The courtyard erupted. Witnesses were brought. Records uncovered. Servants testified. The false accusations, the planted evidence, the rumors, all traced back to those protecting the past crime. Damilola stood frozen. She had only intended rivalry She had unknowingly helped powerful men hide a greater secret. The king declared, "The innocent will not suffer to protect the guilty." The conspirators were stripped of titles and removed from power. The king then called forward Baba Modupe. The old man walked trembling into the courtyard, confused and afraid. "You protected what was left of a loyal family," the king said. He placed a coral bead chain over his shoulder. "From this day, you will serve as royal advisor over village affairs." Tears filled the old man's eyes. Adérónkẹ could not hold hers back. Her family name, once buried in fear, now stood honored before the kingdom. The people shouted praises, but the king was not finished. He looked towards Adérónkẹ, and for the first time everyone understood. This was never only about judgments. It was about who would stand beside the throne. 3 days later, the palace drums sounded again, but this time they did not lie. They announced destiny. The entire kingdom gathered. Markets closed, roads filled. Songs rose through Ilé-Ọba Adéyẹmí. The coronation platform stood in the courtyard. Adérónkẹ walked forward, dressed in white and royal coral beads. Her once simple bearing now carried quiet authority. She had not forced the crown, she had endured towards it. Ọba Adéyẹmí addressed the kingdom. "A ruler needs strength, but a throne also needs wisdom, patience, and courage without pride." He looked at her. This woman stood in suspicion without anger, in danger without betrayal, and in honor without arrogance. He lifted the crown. "I do not choose her because she sought power." A pause. "I choose her because she did not." He placed the crown upon her head. The people cheered. Women elated. Drums thundered across the land. Adérónkẹ, the quiet orphan, became Ayaba Adérónkẹ. She looked across the crowd and found her uncle. He looked straighter than he ever had. Peace finally reached her heart. In time, the kingdom prospered, not because the queen was the most beautiful, but because she was the most steadfast, and the elders would later teach their children. Power gained by force fades quickly, but honor gained by character endures, because sometimes the one who speaks the least is the one destiny has already chosen to be heard. And so, Adérónkẹ, the quiet girl from a dusty compound, became queen. Not because she shouted the loudest, not because she plotted the cleverest scheme, but because she carried courage in silence and wisdom in patience. In the palace of Ilé-Ọba Adéyẹmí, the loudest voice could be forgotten, but character echoes forever. Let her story remind you, the greatest power often comes quietly, and the heart that endures the storm is the heart that destiny chooses. If you loved Adérónkẹ's journey, if you felt her fear, her courage, her triumph, subscribe to this channel, because the next story might be the one that changes everything you thought you know about courage. See you in our next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now.